As it was in the legend of St. George and the Dragon, the European Union is nothing less than a plague-wielding dragon, feeding on the welfare of the European people. And as it was in that very same legend, those that chose to remain under the dragon's control would vote to turn over everything to that dragon. And now, that dragon is on a short leash, meekly begging for a second chance so it can destroy everything in its path. Kurt Nimmo writes, "The establishment is pushing a buyer's remorse narrative in the wake of Brexit, and the globalist George Soros is leading the charge." Soros said during the annual meeting of the European Council of Foreign Relations, "It was in general what you call buyer's remorse. It included everyone, the people who voted for leave, those who voted for remain, and those who didn't vote." According to Soros, the British people are not serious about leaving the EU. They simply want to express their discontent with their political situation in Europe. And now that Brexit is a reality, they are demonstrating buyer's remorse. The corporate media has adopted Soros's narrative.
Is there any chance of a second referendum? Is there any going back?
There's a lot of buyer's remorse, and there's a lot of concern amongst the Remainers, obviously.
ABC News points to a Survation poll conducted for the Mail on Sunday after the Brexit vote. It claims of the 17.4 million who voted to leave, 1.1 million actually wished they had voted remain. And the New York Times went one step further and offered various ways to renege on the vote. For instance, the new prime minister might refuse to invoke Article 50 of the European Union's governing treaty and instead act like the vote never happened.
Because if we're going to wait for a successor to David Cameron, further thinking, and we're not going to invoke Article 50 or start the serious renegotiation of our trade relationship until later on this year, actually that is a period of indecision.
Another escape hatch might be the parliaments of Scotland, Northern Ireland, and Wales refusing to approve Brexit. On Monday, an online petition calling for a second vote had 3.8 million signatures. Paul Manafort, Donald Trump's campaign manager, said Brexit represents a rejection of globalism and faceless bureaucrats ruling the lives of millions of people. However, globalist shill President Barack Obama would have the American people led astray yet again.
I think it's important to remember that Mr. Trump embodies global elites and has taken full advantage of it his entire life, and so he's hardly a spokesperson for a legitimate spokesperson for a populist surge from working class people on either side of the Atlantic.
Meanwhile, the humiliated, arrogant swine running the EU are unveiling their blueprint for an EU superstate. Nothing less than a sovereign corroding ultimatum that would propose that member EU countries would lose their right to their own army, criminal law, taxation system, immigration system, and the illusion of the control of their central bank. An all-encompassing totalitarian state that has been in the works all along. The Express UK reports excerpts of the 9-page EU superstate report were published today as the leaders of Germany, France, and Italy met in Berlin for Brexit crisis talks. In the preamble to the text, the two ministers write, "Our countries share a common destiny and a common set of values that give rise to an even closer union between our citizens." Immediately after the Brexit, many people in England texted, "What is the European Union?" Well, simply put, the European Union was created in 1955 at Bilderberg by the very same globalists that have risen to their current status as the enemy of humankind, fomenting quiet wars, utilizing a myriad of weapons in order to establish a new world order, which those very same globalists are incredibly close to finalizing. And now the rest of Europe is following Great Britain's lead. If the British people do fold under the weight of doom and gloom shelled out by the very globalists they're trying to escape from and return like frightened children to their sociopathic mummy and daddy at the EU, the imaginary consequences the mainstream media would have the British people frightened of now would become very real in the near future, resulting in complete and total submission under a European superstate run by unelected bureaucrats in Brussels so arrogant and powerful, England would cease to exist. It is the EU that must cease to exist. John Bound for Infowars.com.
While we were ending the broadcast yesterday on Tuesday, Donald Trump was giving a speech on declaring America's economic independence. And I was intending on the 4th of July to have a rebroadcast of some of our biggest and most important interviews. But I'm tempted to come in the next few days and tape a special broadcast about NAFTA and GATT and the WTO and the IMF and the World Bank and the TPP and all the rest of it, and break down in their own words how they're establishing a corporate world government. Because this speech is the best I've ever seen in my lifetime against globalism. He points out that Hillary is a foreign agent of the Chinese. He says that she is an agent in a trade war against us. These are quotes. He says, if I get elected, the era of American economic surrender is over. He says they threaten us with trade war. Ladies and gentlemen, we're already in a trade war. We're already under attack. We're already having our jobs sold off to the communist Chinese. Hillary is an agent and has been an agent since the communist Chinese were funding money through Don Tyson of Tyson Chicken, who ran the Clintons. They were formerly CIA. That's been leaked. They were handled by Strobe Talbot at Oxford. But the globalists allowed them to operate at that level as double agents because Henry Kissinger, who they're best friends with and they vacation with, and the Bushes, Bush Sr. was the first ambassador to China after relations opened back up, they made a traitorous, high-level, unilateral deal that Nixon wasn't even aware of and tried to end. That's why they basically impeached him and set him up. He wasn't an angel, but he said, what, you've made a bunch of secret deals? Kissinger? You're in trouble. And Kissinger's like, no, you're in trouble. We control the press. Bye-bye. But this goes back to what happened in the 1970s. You wonder why the Bushes are in charge? You wonder why the Clintons are in charge? You wonder why they call themselves family? You want to know why we just can't seem to get rid of them like a bad case of herpes? It's because they are literally on the payroll of the communist Chinese. That's really who controls them. They also get financed to a great extent by the Saudi Arabians. There's an Israel lobby, but it's mainly about Israel. And it does bad stuff. It gets our secrets and sells it to the Chinese as well. I mean, Israel, to a great extent, is working for the Chinese. 1.5 billion of them, folks, almost 1.5 billion, and they're used as slaves. They have no rights. They have no economic future other than being chattel. They're very smart, hardworking people, so they're the perfect robot army. China is the first robot army. The globalists wanted hundreds of millions of slaves. They've got them. Hundreds of millions of workers. I mean, it's got to be 600, 700 million workers out of 1 billion, 400 million Chinese. And they have got them. And they are leveraging out all of our jobs, all of our factories, all of our future, everything from animation to silicon, to drugs, to prescription drugs, to rare earth minerals, to electronics. It's all going to be China. China is already 97 to 98%, depending on the year, in control of rare earth minerals. Strategically, the globalists do not allow the UK or Germany or France or the US or Canada or Australia to be involved in rare earth minerals. China has been given it in a global treaty. They've been given the Panama Canal and almost all of our deep water ports. They've been given the separation systems, the launch boost systems, the guidance systems, the reentry systems, the MIRV systems, the warhead systems, the targeting systems, the GPS systems, the keys to everything, backdoor codes to all the chips. We are wide open. You've got that demonic Communist Party Politburo and Central Committee passing power down since the 1930s when Mao had rebels up in the mountains, when he took over in 1949 and started killing 84 million people over the next 15 years. And criminal elements of our CIA put him in. That's now been declassified 10 years ago. Declassified in 2005. Look it up. We knew about it because the John Birch Society blew the whistle when they were founded in the 1950s because of that. Because of U.S. agents who were in the CIA and OSS before that who wouldn't be part of it, Army officers and others that were tortured and killed, and Christian mercenaries and other groups. I'm telling you, ladies and gentlemen, this is completely and totally out of control. Because the Chinese won't share power. They won't allow infiltration. They keep it centralized amongst less than 100 families that have set up a new form of royalty called communism. They teach the intellectual morons at colleges that that's for the people. What complete idiots. You think North Korea, China, or Venezuela is for the people? Or Cuba? What morons. No wonder you're such losers. And Donald Trump gets up there and says China is in a trade war with us. China is shutting us down. Our elites have sold out our industrial base as a tool of control. And Hillary is an agent against us in that trade war. That's a quote. Hillary is an agent against us in that trade war. We're going to be playing some of these clips coming up at the bottom of this hour. But what I think I'm going to do is actually tape a show in the next few days for Sunday. And even if you can't watch it Sunday, if you're with family or whatever, we can then post it as a video report Sunday evening for everybody to share on 4th of July as a special 4th of July message of the tyranny and of a new Declaration of Independence, 1776, Part 2, that I called for 5 years ago, that Matt Drudge picked up and, of course, promulgated, that many top lawyers and scholars and constitutionalists said was dead on, a plan on trade, on nation states, on our individual states, to take the federal government back over, dissolve it, then reconstitute it and reorganize it. And that's what Donald Trump's talking about right now. We are overrun. We have foreign interests now in control of Washington, turning the 16 intelligence agencies and all of our tax money against us to train us to be slaves and prisoners in our own country, financing our own serfdom, while the borders are wide open and 10,000 Chinese women get here a week and more than 10,000 a month have their babies for free. That's even CNN, and they're made citizens. We are being colonized by wealthy Chinese. That's the headline in the Chinese Daily. Wealthy Chinese coming here to have their children. And they are Communist Party members. They come here and they get everything free, and then they burrow in with over 10,000 front companies that were known about by the late 90s. Who knows what it is, 20, 30,000 now. And let me tell you how this works, folks. It's a mafia. We have had, in 2 separate cases, communist Chinese try to control what we say and do here, including infiltration. We have had the communist Chinese try to shut Paul Watson down with threats. And I mean real threats in London. I'm going to stop right there. He said, don't want me to talk about it. But it's like a James Bond movie, okay? This isn't a game, people. It isn't a game. Michael Savage couldn't get his book put in bookstores anywhere. He's been a #1 New York Times bestseller. I don't want to exaggerate. I think he had like 14 or 15 books when he was an herbologist. He's a doctor of that. And then he has 5 or 6 others that were #1 political. He couldn't sell a few thousand. No one would sell them in bookstores. He sold, of course, hundreds of thousands to his listeners. Michael Savage, by the way, doesn't need the money. He is founded and controls, and he didn't really brag about this, some of the biggest herb companies and things out there. I'm just going to stop right there. But the point, yeah, the guy's worth billions. The point is he's there putting these books out to warn you, and he doesn't need the money. Okay? He doesn't need to sell the books. But I'm digressing. The Chinese government threatened the publisher. This all came out and basically shut down the distribution. And he came on the show and talked about it, and no one even cared. Born in the USA, why Chinese birth tourism is booming in California, Huffington Post. Oh, it's so wonderful. Ha, ha, ha. It's all a joke. You go to China and want something free, they will let you starve to death in a ditch. You You go to